These are this afternoon's top stories. St. Kitts and Nevis's renewable energy initiatives in the spotlight at COP21. 2 of 7 missing Dominicanos found, and Putin and Obama hold tense talks at Paris summit. Good afternoon and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Tuesday, December 1st, 2015. I am JD Gaines. In national news, St. Kitts and Nevis's strides in promoting the use of renewable energy was presented to the world when Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris addressed the COP21 United Nations Climate Summit in Paris. He told the more than 147 world leaders that his government was in the process of incentivizing behavioral changes through the facilitation of duty-free concessions on renewable energy technologies, adding that it is building strategic partnerships with countries and the private sector to develop geothermal, solar and wind energy solutions. He also reminded that both islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, had operational solar farms and are exploring the potential geothermal capacity. Speaking specifically to the impacts of climate change, Dr. Harris told the gathering that climate change is real for small island developing states, expressing concern that it will progressively get worse if we do not act now. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is reporting that Minister the Honorable Mark Brantley has been engaged with leaders of several African countries. Such engagements came during the just concluded 24th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in the Mediterranean island of Malta. The ministry, through a release, said the move is consistent with the new government's commitment to substantially deepen St. Kitts and Nevis's international diplomatic footprint and strengthen bilateral relations. Among the African country representatives with whom Brantley spoke were the President of Kenya, the Prime Minister of Cameroon, and the foreign ministers of Rwanda, South Africa, Sierra Leone, Mozambique, Swaziland, Botswana, Ghana and Namibia. It is being reported that he emphasized the need for deepening relations with St. Kitts and Nevis. Minister Brantley also seized the opportunity to interact with the new Foreign Minister of Canada, Stéphane Dion. Government officials and other guests were present on Monday morning for the opening ceremony of the Addie's Place Open House. Addie's Place teaches basic life skills to adults with special needs, and for 3 days persons are being invited to visit the facility, meet the students and find out about the work being done. Founding member of Addie's Place, Dr. Robertine Chatterton, commended the staff for their commitment to students.
And they do the different skills training, toileting, eating, we do cooking, and they also try to help them to do things like ironing, those who can, and just giving them some of the basic life skills for coping.
Minister of Community Development, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, encouraged everyone to recognize that persons with disabilities should be given the chance to live meaningful lives.
As we learn a lot more about disabilities, not limited to issues like Down syndrome and other debilitating conditions that prevent or at least hamper individuals to live independent lives, it is still an opportunity for us to focus going forward on the fact that their life is meaningful and their presence is meaningful.
Among those present was resident Taiwanese ambassador, His Excellency George Gowichu. Regionally, ahead of St. Lucia's 2016 elections, Harold Dalson says he is optimistic that when the time comes, he can win for the SLP, despite concerns that the party is losing ground in Soufrière, which has for many years been considered a Labour stronghold. Don Nicholas has that story.
Dalson says he will not be taking his new political opponent Herod Stanislas for granted. Dalson says politics is dynamic and that people vote for all sorts of reasons.
The only time a politician is confident is after the ballots have been counted. Anything can happen between now and the election. But I never consider myself a loser. I've had serious challenges in the person of Gas Specialman and Alan Chasney, and the people of Soufrière made an assessment, and they saw me as a person who they feel best to represent them. I don't think there is anything to change that mindset of the people of Soufrière.
Dalson took the opportunity to provide an update on the Soufrière fire, which demolished at least 6 buildings, some of them commercial, and damaged several others. Dalson says the victims who ended up homeless were given $1,500 to help them get back on their feet, and currently his government is putting together a package to help the displaced workers so that they can at least have some form of income for the season.
We give them small amounts, $1,500 to keep them going in the meantime. We have liaised with NEMO, getting them beds and so on. We are now in the process of trying to get household appliances for them because all of these things were gone. And I understood ZIZ also made a significant contribution to them. And what we are working on right now is to see whether we can provide at least some relief for those persons, especially those who are working at Ultramat, about 11 of them, who cannot work now and may not be able to have an income for Christmas.
Dalson made the comments while he was attending the St. Lucia Taiwan Trade Exhibition in Rodney Bay on Friday morning. For the DBS News World, I'm Don Nicholas.
2 of the 7 immigrants from the Dominican Republic who have been evading authorities since their permits to stay in Antigua expired on November 22nd are now in custody. A source close to the investigation said the male and female were picked up on Friday and are being held at the former U.S. Naval Base in the custody of Immigration and Police Task Forces. The source said the officers are still looking for the others who have reportedly been moving from house to house in order to stay underground since mid-November. The 2 detainees are due to be questioned by the Criminal Investigations Department, CID, and immigration officials. They were part of a larger group of 37 people who traveled to Antigua and Barbuda in late October, allegedly to perform in a band during an activity held to celebrate independence. While 17 people left immediately after the event, 20 remained, and 13 were later rounded up and sent packing before the expiration of their time. Internationally, U.S. President Barack Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin remain at odds on a number of issues, including the best way to defeat ISIS. CNN's Jim Acosta reports.
As Moscow continues its airstrikes inside Syria, complicating the U.S. fight against ISIS, today President Obama and Russia's Vladimir Putin appear to be looking right past each other in this Kremlin photo snapped at this week's Global Climate Summit in Paris. The 2 leaders are still at odds over any kind of alliance to defeat ISIS. Mr. Obama expressed his regret to Putin after Turkey shot down a Russian warplane last week, but Putin is still furious, refusing to meet with Turkey's president at the climate talks.
The president, again, reiterated his strong belief that we need to work together.
The war on ISIS is looming large over this climate summit. As soon as he landed in France, the president laid a single white rose outside the Bataclan Theater to remember the victims of the Paris attacks. And police clashed with protesters, angry over a new ban on large demonstrations, part of the intense security measures in the French capital.
We have come to Paris to show our resolve.
But in Paris, the president made the case that bringing the world together to battle climate change is yet another way to take the fight to ISIS.
What greater rejection of those who would tear down our world than marshaling our best efforts to save it?
Republicans pounced on the president's focus on global warming, insisting he should be busy destroying ISIS.
It's insulting to the position that he holds. It's insulting even more to the responsibilities that are his, for him to be talking about this stuff right now.
After the president's initial response to the Paris attacks was slammed by critics, the White House is trying to get back on offense, announcing it's tightening the visa waiver program that eases travel into the U.S., appointing a new senior advisor to the president on the counter-ISIS campaign, and planning more talks with U.S. governors about incoming Syrian refugees. And the White House contends it's Republicans who are wrong about the climate summit.
If the entire world had planned to come to Paris, and you had leaders from over 190 countries who had planned to come here to Paris, and we had called that off, that would be demonstrating that ISIL can disrupt the activities of the entire world.
After almost 3 decades of having the same leader at the reins, Burkina Faso has a new president. Roch Christian Kabore won more than 50% of the vote from Sunday's poll. They were the first presidential and legislative elections since a popular uprising in October of last year. Al Jazeera's Mohamed Ado reports.
Celebrations rocked Ouagadougou the moment results of the elections were announced. Former Prime Minister Roch Kabore was proclaimed the winner. He will become the country's first civilian leader in almost 5 decades. In his victory speech, he promised to follow through on his campaign promises.
We owe to those who sacrificed their lives for our country the restoration of our constitutional order, peaceful governance that strengthens democracy, and national reconciliation.
Crisis-weary citizens of Burkina Faso are tonight celebrating the end of political turmoil in their country. It's the hope of many here that the election of a new president will usher in a new era of peaceful democracy. Kabore was also the president of the National Assembly under President Blaise Compaoré. He split with Compaoré early last year and formed an opposition party, the Movement for People's Progress. Not everyone is happy with his victory.
He was not my candidate and never will be. I don't see any difference between him and Compaoré. He worked with Compaoré 25 of the 27 years he was in power.
The elections also bring to an end the transitional administration installed after Blaise Compaoré was overthrown in a popular uprising last year. Compaoré seized power by force and won 4 elections, all of which were disputed. He was toppled by protests when he tried to change the constitution to extend his rule even further.
No politician, no political party will from now come and impose an idea or a practice of government to the Burkina Faso. This is a very good thing, and this is the biggest achievement since the insurrection of October 2014.
Comfortable in the knowledge that months of turmoil are now behind them, the people of Burkina Faso continue to celebrate their country's new status. Mohamed Ado, Al Jazeera, Ouagadougou.
And now taking a look at the weather. Temperatures today will peak at 75 degrees Fahrenheit with calm winds blowing southerly at 9 miles per hour. Today and tonight we'll see mostly cloudy skies with periods of scattered showers developing, some of which could be moderate to locally heavy at times, accompanied by isolated thunderstorms. Seas are moderate to locally rough with swells reaching 6 feet. Sunset later today will be at 5:35 p.m., while sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:25 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thanks for tuning in. I'm JD Gaines. Have a great afternoon.